Good afternoon, everyone. It's Debbie Evans here, bribing Rolo to sit still whilst we do a reading today. This one is from The Secret Adventures of Rolo, Book 5, Phoenix and the Dragonling, the latest book. And today we're going to read about the Romans and Hadrian's Wall. So I'm going to jump into the chapter, and this is where Rolo meets a couple of centurions. "Hey, you there!" A voice of authority floated down to the complaining auxiliaries. "You're to take a message to Vercovicium immediately and give it personally to the commander." Both men straightened up and made a fist to their heart, giving a salute away from their chest in the direction of the message-bearer, who had the air of being superior in rank. "Vercovicium? I didn't even know where that is. Do you, Lucius?" Gracchus whispered to his companion. It's actually the Roman name for Housesteads. "I believe it is the next fort along the line of defence, 2 miles from here." Mumbling and muttering, much like Dar, the soldiers backed up the broken steps onto the top of the flat ledge of wall where I was lurking and wondering how to introduce myself. Gracchus held the tightly bound scroll containing the message in his big hairy hand. Lucius stumbled on the step and grabbed hold of his companion as he went over heavily on his ankle, still managing to catch himself on the raised stonework, but narrowly missing, impaling himself on his sword. "Curse this broken wall," he muttered through clenched teeth as he sat down hard on the step and rubbed his foot, clattering his sword on the stone. "Here, let me see that," said Gracchus, concerned for his compatriot, bending down to inspect the other man's foot, which immediately started swelling inside his military-issue sandal. "You've sprained your ankle on those wretched stones. Now what to do? I need to help you get medical aid, but what about delivering this message?" "I'll be fine. Leave me. You go," said Lucius, trying to put his weight on his injured foot and wincing at the resulting pain. This was my moment. Without hesitation, I revealed myself to the Romans, jumping down the steps to sit beside them and hoping that they could understand me. "What in the name of Jupiter are you?" bellowed Gracchus, making a sign as if to ward off bad spirits. I took a deep breath. "My name is Rolo, and I can deliver your message." "I'm at your service," I said, bowing my head in a deferential manner. "God's teeth!" exclaimed Lucius. "A small dog, the likes of which I've never seen before, half a hound or less. Can you really be trusted to run this important errand?" "Beware, it may be a trap sent by the Brigantes," hissed Gracchus through his clenched teeth. Those are the Celts ruling northern England. "You can trust me. I've been sent to help you. It's a long story, but I can run along the wall. Clearly you can't," I added, affronted that I was only thought to be half a hound. The soldiers didn't look convinced. I racked my brains to think how I could persuade them. I had a light bulb moment. "Quercius," I said confidently. It was the only Latin word I could think of. "He speaks of the oak," said Lucius, looking up and pausing from rubbing his ballooning ankle, peering more closely at me. "This strange creature looks like he's come straight from Mithras, god of darkness, perchance to aid us in our task." Gracchus again made a sign to ward off evil spirits. Was that directed at me? Not their fault, I suppose. It dawned on me that they'd probably never seen a Jack Russell before. After a few moments of heated discussion, and by some miracle, the weary soldiers agreed. They didn't look as if they wanted a 2-mile route march to Vercovicium, and the same distance straight back to base, sprained ankle or not. Whilst they were pondering their options, a trumpet sounded from the barracks, signalling the period of watch was just coming to an end. "If we go now, we'll certainly miss out on our rest time," said Lucius, looking at his compatriot. Gracchus handed over the scroll, briefing me on how to find the commander's house when I got to Vercovicium. "Supposing he gets lost?" his voice raising concern. "It's a straight line along the wall. How hard can it be?" I took the scroll in my teeth and set off quickly before they changed their minds. I'd seen the date of the scroll during the handover. My knowledge of Roman numerals is not brilliant, but by quick calculation, I reckoned the year to be AD 158. The name on it was Antonine Pius, Emperor of Rome. The address for delivery was described as the place of effective fighters. That sounded impressive. Whoa, it was pretty scary on top of the narrow ledge, I can tell you. I had to jump over a few gaps where stones were missing, as the build had been neglected of late, much as the auxiliaries had said. When I found a smooth bit of unbroken wall, I stopped to look around 360 degrees and take stock of the northern landscape. The view stretched on and on as far as the eye could see, with no sign of any settlement since leaving Vindolanda. A sharp escarpment swept down the hill, strewn with stones where rocks had crumbled and cascaded. The view was punctuated with wind-blasted leafless trees. No wonder the wall had been built along this natural contour. An approaching enemy could be seen for miles around, with the defending army having the advantage of height. The wall eventually ran into a large square building. I guessed this was the next barracks, which housed the soldiers. It seemed I had arrived at the fort. I ducked behind a low wall so as not to be seen and navigated through the perfectly symmetrical architecture, looking around for a big house. A large, fierce dog approached me with a warning growl rising from its belly. I stayed very still and subservient, avoiding eye contact while he sniffed me. Survival techniques. He resembled Brutus, the hound from Pompeii. He asked me my business gruffly and then directed me to the commander's house with an air of great importance, as if I was the lowliest of the low. "You mean the Praetorium?" he corrected me. Well, whatever you call it, the desired building was set in a beautiful formal garden, quite separate from the barracks. The grand house had a triangular roof and niches with statues of Mars, god of war, Victoria, goddess of victory, and Fortuna, goddess of good luck. No mistaking that it belonged to a worthy personage, in this case, the commander. I crossed the central courtyard, looking from side to side. No one seemed fazed by this four-legged messenger. Perhaps they thought I was Mercury, messenger of the gods in disguise. I offered up the scroll to a bearded man in full uniform. I knew instinctively by his bearing that he was the legate, or commander, the man the message was intended for. Without so much as a glance at the humble messenger, the missive was taken, impatiently unfastened, stretched out, and quickly read. "God's teeth," said the commander, as he flung down the scroll on the table, and it hastily re-rolled itself as if frightened of him. "We are to abandon the new northern wall, recall the legionaries, immediately move them back here to rebuild this wall. The mile castles are to be reinforced, the vallum cleared, a new road is to be built, a military road to replace the winding Steingate. Orders from Rome," he shouted, and called for his tribunes to send foot messengers at once to transmit the message of recall all the way north by word of mouth right up to the Antonine Wall. Instructions to the legions stationed there were to pack up immediately, abandon the wall, and relocate to this older, more southerly defence. The commander's wife, Juliana, complained bitterly. She wanted to return to the warmth of Rome, and like the legionaries, hated the cold of the north on this island of Britain. This posting seemed like a life sentence. Juliana was dressed in a simple tunic, which in turn was covered with a stola, an outer draping garment. Only married women were allowed to wear these, the female equivalent of a male toga. And on top of this, her hair was covered with a palla, or shawl, which consisted of a great deal of material wrapped around her head and covering her shoulders. I could see an elaborate brooch of yellow metal, possibly gold, keeping the sides of the stola fastened together at her neck. As if to emphasise the chill she was feeling, Juliana pulled the palla around her hair and partially covered her face with the rich, luxuriant fabric which only enhanced her natural olive-skinned beauty. Nothing I can do about it, Juliana. We follow orders. The men may not like it either, but they will not complain. Get used to living here, because here we are going to stay, unless ordered otherwise. It is the will of Rome. But the plumbing doesn't work properly. The hypercaust is playing up again. The floors are cold, and it's not healthy for all those men to be patrolling a wall in this bleak place in all the elements the gods throw at us. No one is going to invade. Who would want to live here anyway? She moaned. You've made your point, Juliana. Between you and me, I think resources are a little stretched, fortifying 2 walls with not much in between, and it's not as if we're overrun with Scots. The Brigantes in the Pennines are more troublesome than the more northerly locals. In truth, and by the God's grace, it's not a bad life here, and you've got a beautiful house, plenty of servants, a dutiful husband, and our children. You are luckier than most. You never know, one day I may be recalled to Rome for long and faithful service. We live in hope, Juliana muttered under her breath. I tried to blend into the soft furnishings, clocking the exit and planning to sneak out from this opulent house as quickly as possible. Message delivered, work done. All at once I was set upon by 2 young children, all arms and legs and liveliness. Can we keep him? Said the boy with shoulder-length hair, tossing me up in the air. He's really cute. Let's give him a necklace. None of the family seemed to notice. The necklace was removed from the girl child's neck and looped over my head. It looked a bit like glass beads. I submitted. I was picked up like a doll, swung around a few times and hugged and squeezed way too much. The governor and his wife seemed oblivious to my plight and were still arguing about domestic matters, having moved on to the problem of blocked drains. The children decided to dress me up as a doll, which involved much draping in swathes of material, and a helmet was jammed on my head. I found myself dragged towards a toy chariot and then hurtled around the marble floor. I was in fear of my life. The children were shrieking in delight. Sylvanus and Livia, put the messenger down and go and wash your hands and get ready for dinner. I seized the moment, leapt out from the chariot and ran for my life without a backward glance, out of the villa, bounding down the shallow steps 2 at a time, finding the wall and running its length, discarding the drapes and the helmet along the way. I ran until I heard a familiar whistle and threw myself into the time tunnel, beckoned by Julia's lantern. I was very relieved to see her anxious little face. Nice necklace, Paddy Paws, she said. It's yours, take it. I bent my head down and she removed the Roman souvenir, winding it around her waist a couple of times like a belt. Julia's dress now resembled a stola. We made our way back along the time tunnel in silence, back to the familiarity of the forest. Phew, that was close. So there we will leave it for today, and I will be back again tomorrow with another reading. And this morning I have actually posted an introduction to The Secret Adventures of Rolo for those of you that aren't familiar with my little time-travelling Jack Russell. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now.